talking to Keith Zimmer and his staff, and not just what we can do for them football-wise, but what what this whole university, the whole athletic department is committed to developing young men, which is much more than just trying to develop as a football player. And everything that we try to do as a group and as a team, meaning the whole athletic department, to give to our student athletes and to make sure that they understand that when they walk out the door, that's the most important thing, that they're going to be ready for the opportunities, for the challenges that lie ahead once they graduate from college. And that this university, in my opinion, is the best out there in developing kids and making sure that they're going to have the opportunities to reach every goal beyond football that they want to reach. And when kids come in there, and more importantly, and just as importantly, parents come in here and see that, it sells itself. And I think they see there is no place like Nebraska when they have the opportunity to see it up close and personal.
You can talk a little bit about one of the more interesting ones you've seen with recruiting, and what were the last kind of 24
Who's that? Sorry?
Bell Dixon, and the last 24 hours with him.
Well, you know what, that young man, I mean, that's not one of the more interesting ones I've had. I've obviously, I coached down in Louisiana for a number of years, and the mother, Paula, his mom, wasn't on the visit. He was probably, to a certain extent, being pulled in a couple different directions and wasn't quite sure. I think he knew all along that this was the best place for him, but a kid who grew up in a small town in Louisiana, that's a big step. And I give him a lot of credit for being able to sign his name and go out there outside of the box and know that he's going to get on a plane and go a long way from home to play football and to continue his career and get an education. And it wasn't an easy thing for him to do. In the end, he realized it was the right place for him, and now it's our responsibility to make sure that we make that the right choice for him in what we do for that young man.
Well, can you talk about Josh Banderas and what kind of ambassador he was for the class, being one of the first commits?
That early, sometimes, it's a shame because sometimes those guys that commit early, like Josh Banderas, Johnny Stanton, you go right down the list of some of these young men who committed early, stayed committed the whole time through. Sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle because, the focus goes on the end of the class and who committed late and, who committed, who's decommitting, all the other things, when there are a big core group of guys who committed early, stayed committed, and really helped us finish this class off. And, on the Facebook and the different things that they stayed in contact with a lot of these recruits. And just shows, early on that, there's a group of kids that took a leadership role in this thing, and I think it'll pay off for us because I think they'll be leaders for a long time to come once they become part of this program.
Well, what did you see in Johnny Stanton that attracted you to him?
Tremendous football player, like the rest of these guys. He has great potential. He has a lot of character. He's a tough kid. Can do multiple things. I mean, he, from the quarterback position, he can throw. He's tough. He can run. He can run inside. He can run outside. You add him to the stable of quarterbacks we already have on campus, I feel real good about that position.
Is he on pace to be back 100% health-wise?
Yeah, he's doing fine. He'll be 100% when he gets there.
Do you have a sense for the three guys that have been here, Neville, Singleton, and Courtney Love, how they've progressed since they've been here?
They've done well. Coach Jobson's saying nothing but great things. You look at a guy like Courtney Love's very kind of physically developed. He's way ahead of the game and kind of what he looks like and what he's capable of doing right now. But he's still really being trained, in a big time program for the first time. David Neville's a guy who was behind. You ask him, and he's being exposed to a lot of things for the first time, but he's really come a long way in a short period of time, and every day is important for him. And DJ Singleton the same. he's a guy who, you know, is mature, you know, both mentally and physically, and I think he's come here on a mission. And, you know, those guys that start early, it's not easy to do to start mid-year. You know, you kind of go in and it's those three guys trying to interact and find their way into a football team that all knows each other. But, you know, in our program, we got a lot of good young men, kids who, you know, take these guys under their wing and are showing them the way, and they fit right in. They haven't missed a beat.
Well, what do you like about Drake Martinez, and what was the Martinez's family, what was the reaction like when you brought another one of their family members into the program?
They were really excited, but, you know, I tried to be a little bit hands-off in that recruiting to a certain extent, and have respect for the fact that I think Drake knew I wanted him here. Wanted to make sure, you know, he's a young man who can play a lot of different positions. You know, we're going to start, we wanted to make sure we were on the same page of where he would start. He's going to start on the defensive side of the football, the safety position, and knew he was talented, but at the same time, you know, it's different for a young man like that where his brother's here. I didn't want to make him feel pressured by us, by anybody that, you know, make him feel like, oh, you know, you know, make him make this decision for Drake, not because his brother's there and because it's expected that he goes to Nebraska. So, in fact, I was probably a little too hands-off at times, and kind of giving him his space, and, you know, when his time's right, he can tell me. And then it started getting a little bit too close, and I go on the phone, I said, hey, we got to sit down, and we need to talk about this and figure this out, and it became very clear that he knew that this was a place for him, and this was a tremendous opportunity for him, and I'm thrilled because I think he's has the potential to be a heck of a football player.
Coach, Mixon told a story about how you stopped in to see his mom before you saw him. Ernest Settles told a story about Coach Papuch just being more concerned with his well-being post-football. You think you could see a shift with all the craziness going on where people will take comfort in the safety and the family structure that's known as Nebraska and actually have it become a recruiting advantage coming here in a place where the perception is it's good to raise a family?
Yeah, I think so, Damon. I think that that's important, especially, you know, like I say, we get the kids that we want. I think, you know, that a certain type of young man, obviously we're recruiting kids with talent, but a certain type of young man gravitates to our program. We don't go in there with a lot of bells and whistles. It's pretty black and white. This is going to be what we have to offer. This is what our university has to offer. It's pretty special, what we have to offer here. And, you know, if you're about the right things, I think it's a place that sells itself to a certain extent. But, you know, we want to know, you know, we want to make sure we're developing a relationship with the family. You know, I mean, going to see you know, I sat down and I've been in every one of these kids' homes, and you know, they get to know me, I get to know them. We're on the same page as far as, you know, what the expectations are. You know, there's not any false promises. There's no promises whatsoever, other than we're going to give them an opportunity, and we're going to demand a high standard from them day in and day out, from the day they walk in until the day they leave. And you know, other than that, you're going to get what you earn around here. And but I will say that, you know, I talk a lot more about things other than football than I do football when I sit down in front of these kids and their families, because in my mind, that's the most important. And obviously, football will take care of itself. It either will or it won't. And with each kid, and, you know, but the reality is most of these kids aren't going to play in the NFL. You know, you watch this thing all day long that went on ESPN and everything else, and most of those kids you saw on TV, the reality is most of them aren't going to play in the NFL. So there's a lot more to this. It's a lot more important than what's going to happen on the field on Saturdays for these young men.
Oh, you about half your class seemingly commit over the last couple of months. Is that, I mean, do you like having scholarships available so you can use those December, January to evaluate some senior film? Just talk about that. Was that by design to have some openings available so you could get some people who might be under the radar?
Not necessarily. Every class, every situation, every young man for that matter, in the recruiting process, every situation's a little bit different. And it's ever changing. your needs, sometimes become a lot clearer after the season than it does before the season. There's a lot of things that play into this. And is it nice having some scholarships? It's at times, but at times I wish they were all full by the time we get to a bowl game. But the reality of it is that today's the signing date, and whether you're all committed out by then or not, more than likely things are going to change, and they're going to change pretty much right up until the signing day, because it's a pretty fluid deal.
I know you can't project it for the future, but I mean, you look across the country, a lot of programs tend to have their class pretty well filled up by the time the season starts now. It seems like.
I think that that'll never happen here. I don't want that to happen here, because I think that you learn a lot about kids during the senior year. And I think a lot of the best players maybe didn't come in to play their best football till their senior year. And that's why, me personally, I wish the whole thing, rather than speed up the recruiting process, I wish we could slow it down some. Because I think there would be less mistakes made, I guess you could say. And they give you a lot better opportunity to evaluate them during their senior year, which should be the most important time to evaluate them.
Who were some of the guys in this class that really stepped up that senior year that you were glad that you had that second year look at?
Well, you look at a guy like Ernest Suttles, you go right down the list. Kevin Maurice, who, Kevin Maurice played more offense. I mean, he played both ways as a junior, but he didn't play the bulk of his football, on the defensive side till his senior year. And because he was playing both ways all the time. I mean, that's just two examples, but you can go right down the list of, especially some of the guys that committed late. And, you're not necessarily recruiting kids at what they did in high school. You're recruiting, trying to figure out and what they're going to be a year, 2, 3 down the road. And obviously what they've done during their senior year is real important. There's one young man who we would have taken early, who, bottom line, didn't play worth a damn during his senior year. So, it was obvious he wasn't part of our plans for whatever reason. I think he had the potential, but he got caught up, in my opinion, in the recruiting process and a lot of other things, and which showed me he'll probably, down the line, probably won't become the football player he's capable of becoming. So, so every situation's a little bit different.
How about your walk-on class? How much of the success that your prior walk-ons getting onto the field so early in the process, did that help in selling and trying to get some of these guys to walk on to the program?
Yeah, I think our walk-on program speaks for itself. I mean, it sells itself. Jeff Jamrog and the coaches and a group of, the group that's involved in helping recruit the walk-ons is, Coach Cotton's really involved here in the state, and they do a heck of a job evaluating and figuring out who fits us. And, we didn't take, it's going to end up being 15 kids. We've taken more than that. I think we've taken less than that a year, maybe a year or two ago. And but we take the kids we feel are right for us. And it makes sense both ways. And we feel real good about this group. And the reality of it is, a number of those kids will probably play for us and help us. And that's a big, has been huge for our program since I've been here. I mean, you go all the way back to Tom, but I know since I've been here, the walk-on program's been really helped us win a lot of football games.
Hey, Bill, how's it work with Hearn and Rome? Do they stay on scholarship and enrolled in classes for the?
Yeah, they'll finish out this semester.
And they stay on scholarship?
I believe so. The scholarship doesn't rescind until that gets renewed in July, or not renewed.
Why is Rome transferring?
It was mutual. We sat down, and he thought it was best that he go to play in another program, and I agreed with him.
Did you consider leaving the door open for Braylon at any point? But it's closed now.
Not necessarily. He's still got a couple scholarships left. If Braylon decided that, he rethought things, and I'd sit down with him. I think the world of Braylon. Right now, it's not. he's, his mindset's another place. So I wish him luck.
Coach, a ton has changed. You've done this a long time with kids' temperament and what they can, how hard they want to compete. Do you have to have discussions ahead of time before you go out and recruit to gauge whether your team can handle other guys being recruited, bringing in certain guys? Will they embrace competition, or do you try to do that evaluation process when you're first bringing those kids in and that
You know what, I'm very, very consistent. We as a staff are very consistent from the day we meet a kid till the day that he graduates. And there's no kid that's been promised anything except an opportunity, and we tell them, you're going to have to earn what you get, you're going to have to compete. And the best guys are going to play, and you need to put it on film. If you can't put it on film, you're not going to be out there. And that starts the day we meet a kid. And that isn't going to change. That isn't going to change any time. Are we going to lose some kids? But you know what? At the end of the day, what I'm going to concern myself is those kids that we walk out on the field with on August 31st. Because, they've all heard the same thing. There isn't any, just by going off of how they were recruited, there's not a kid in our program who would have any reason to believe that I'm walking into another recruit's home and saying, we're going to put you on the field day one. You're going to be starting the first time. That is not going to happen. That does not happen here. And it's one thing that we have in our program. It's black and white and it's consistent. And that's why we don't have many problems. I mean, does that mean that the kid's not going to leave every now and then? No, that's just the way. That's just the way it is these days. You just look across the country. We probably average less when you look at the national average of kids leaving our program. We've been below the norm. Right now, with like four kids in about the last year, that's probably at about the average, maybe the norm right now. We've been below norm. But is that going to happen? Yeah, it's going to happen some. But does that mean, in my mind, if they leave, that means that they're probably better off someplace else. And in the end, our program's probably better off someplace else.
Your microphone fell off.
Say again?
Your microphone fell off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where'd it go?
Well, you got two out of KC and got a couple in recent years. What's down there, numbers and talent-wise, and what opportunities maybe down there for you guys?
Well, it's pretty local to us. It's in the within that 500-mile radius, and there's good football down there. We're recruited hard down there. Coach Garrison's been down here now, and he has some ties down there. That's going to help us hopefully in Kansas City. And I know this coming year, this next year, obviously I can't talk about kids, but it's a strong year down in Kansas City. And I know I did some junior recruiting already down in that area. And you talk about Kansas City. We want to get heavier into St. Louis, which we haven't had a lot of success in, but we want to continue to recruit hard. So at the end of the day, the closer we can stay to home base, the easier it's going to be for us, and the better off we're going to be. It's just every year is a little bit different, and we got to go find the kids we feel can help us win a championship.
How's the in-state crop next year?
Generally speaking, pretty good. There's going to be some evaluation that needs to go on, and but probably, I'm not going to throw numbers out there, but probably deeper than it was this year.
Coach, looks like the last week or so recruiting has been a little tough on the body.
Now, that just happened about an hour ago, so.
I didn't see the other guy.
No, it was a pull.
Anything else for Coach? Hey, well, last year, towards the end of the season, you said you kind of wished you had got some of the younger defensive linemen some more playing time. Do you think you'll be more willing to pull the trigger this year with those 6 incoming D-line?
Yeah, I would. I can't look into a crystal ball, and I'm not sure, but we're going to fire our guns next year, and I'm not. I told every kid that I looked at recruiting, I said, get your butt ready to play, because that's going to be our mindset. We're going to try and get each one of these kids ready to play, and we're going to try and use every ounce of depth that we have. And like I said, our mindset is to like it always is to go win them all. And there's a number of these young men that I think can be a big part of that.
That's a bit of a shift over telling those guys that, isn't it? To be ready? Is that a little different?
I haven't addressed it much in the past. You know, I think we're at a point in the program right now where it's a little bit different. I look back, I think the one mistake I did make is that I didn't play some of these kids more. I did redshirt some of these kids. I made that decision, I think, maybe a little bit too quick, and I've kicked myself for it. And you know, you live and learn. And like I said, you know, you think back and you evaluate, you learn from, you know, sometimes you got to learn from your mistakes too.
So we have a couple second-generation Nebraska players in this class, and obviously some family members. What does that bring to the program, having had that consistency from before and that mentality from before? What can that bring to you?
Well, you know, the tradition in this program obviously is, in my opinion, is second to none. And having former players, you know, I guess you call them legacies. To me, it's just like the importance of the walk-on program, and you know, the importance of the football in the state, making sure the state's represented. At the end of the day, having kids that, you know, when you recruit across the country and you're recruiting nationwide, you bring, you know, the single most important thing, biggest challenge you have as a football program as a coach is to bring in and get all those kids that are coming in from across the country to buy into a certain culture and a tradition that is different than any other place in the country. Let's face it. It's unique unto itself, this football program is. And having, obviously, the walk-ons, the in-state kids, having families who have been through this, who understand what this football program is all about, makes that culture stronger, faster. And that's a very important part of our program, always will be, so it's nice to have that representation in this class.
When practice starts in a month, if any guys off the top of your head you know of at this point who may not participate?
No, everybody will be ready to roll, I think. Thad Randall won't. Other than that, everybody else will be ready to go.
Did he have surgery?
Yeah, he just had his knee cleaned out. He's going to be. He had, you know, Thad Randall, you know, sucked it up all year, and he played hurt a lot of the year. He's going to be 100% when he comes back, and let me tell you, that's going to be really good news, because when he's healthy, he's a really good football player. We need him back at 100%, and he will be. I mean, the surgery was successful, and how he made it through the year, it just shows the kind of toughness and what that guy's got inside. He's a special guy.
Would you slide any of your defensive ends into tackle?
Somewhat. We're talking about that, and we have a really talented group, I believe, up front, and a group that's going to be very versatile, that's going to be athletic and can do a lot of different things. So we're going to have a lot of options in how we can use that talent.